right, sir. May I get you to say your name, please?
Robert Somrak. When I was in the Navy, I was fire controlman second class. And fire controlman second class means that you handle the firing of the guns.
And where are you? Are you under the ship? Are you on top of the ship? Where are you?
As fire controlman second class, I was in the gun tower itself.
Okay.
In the control part of the gun.
Was this a high pressure job?
Duck soup. I mean, it's, you get used to that kind of stuff. Nothing ever fazed me in the Navy,
How old were you at the time?
Probably around 20, 19 or 20.
Okay, so pretty young fellow at that time.
Well, most wars are fought by kids, if you think about it.
It's very true. Especially as you get older, you realize how young you were at the time.
That's right.
What made you enlist in the Navy?
Well, first of all, I didn't enlist. They were drafting people, but fortunately, I had the opportunity to, instead of going into the Army, of joining the Navy. So I opted for the Navy.
Why?
I loved the sea and the water, and I thought it'd be a lot better. I know in the Navy you always have a clean bed, good food. So I went for the Navy rather than going into the Army.
And did you always have good food while you were on the Mighty Mo?
Oh yeah. Actually, especially the fact that the Mighty Mo at that time, President Truman was from Missouri, so they made sure we had good food on our ship.
Do you remember the first time you got on USS Missouri?
I sure do. I remember the first time I got on Missouri, they sent me below to a compartment, and I'm on this bunk, wondering what the heck am I doing here, because I figured they just left me there and I'm stranded. So fortunately, after a while, I was assigned to the same area where other fire controlmen were. So then I got my bearings and got acclimated to the ship.
It wasn't overwhelming?
No, well, a little bit, but a little bit confusing at first because you didn't know where the heck you were going to go, what you were going to do, or it was anticipating what's coming up next.
So where did you first get on USS Missouri? Was it in Brooklyn?
The Brooklyn Navy Yard, yeah.
So you were on from the very beginning?
I'm a plank owner.
You are a plank owner, okay. So you were on from the very beginning.
Right.
I've seen some very amazing imagery of the ship barely getting out of the waters around Manhattan and going through the Panama Canal. Were you able to go up on deck and experience those things?
Well, I remember going through the Panama Canal, right. That was beautiful. Matter of fact, I think we got Liberty in Panama, because I think we got Liberty there, and at that time, being young guys and having girlfriends, everybody was going ashore to get taboo for perfume. I remember the name of the perfume was Taboo.
Let's talk a little bit about the battle. From what I gather, you make it here to Hawaii, and then you make it out going towards Japan.
Right.
Were you at any point anxious as you started to churn your way across the ocean to Japan?
Not really. I enjoyed every moment of it. I really did.
Every moment of it?
Yeah. Well, I wasn't concerned about anything. Everything seemed to be okay. I had no problems. I was on a good ship, well taken care of, good food. We stood our watches. We had, everybody had a standard watch period, usually 4 hours. And then you were free to do whatever.
And then battle begins. I believe you were on the ship when the kamikaze attack hit Mighty Mo. Did you see it?
But I was in gun turret 3, so I was behind a lot of steel armor. At least 8 inches thick of steel armor out inside the gun turret. So even though the plane crashed into our ship, and when I got out of the gun turret, it was like from here to there. And I picked up a piece of the plane. In fact, I still have it. I made a letter opener out of it.
You made a letter opener out of a piece of a kamikaze plane?
Yeah, I still have it.
Just like it strikes me that's a very mundane thing to make out of something that was a very pivotal moment in your life.
What I had to do was I had to tear a piece of the wing or aluminum off the plane. So what I was going to do was just a plain piece. So I figured, well, make it look like something. So I filed it and trimmed it to look like a letter opener.
And did you actually open your mail with it?
Well, I did. I still have it at home.
But you don't use it anymore?
Oh, no, I don't use it. No, it's just memorabilia.
That's a pretty important piece of memorabilia. The Battle of Iwo Jima, you're there. Was there ever a time when you thought this could go bad for us? Was there ever a time you were concerned?
No, not really. We were always pretty much in control.
Yeah, I mean, we know that now, but I didn't know if you felt that way when you were on the ship.
Well, you know, when you're young, at that age, things don't bother you. I mean, the older people, they worry about stuff, but when you're young like that, you just go with the flow.
And I heard something about chocolate. Is that your story? Is that you?
Well, because I was in fire control and I had access to the air-conditioned plotting room, being in the South Pacific where it's real hot, I was able to take my chocolate bars and put them in the air conditioning ducts in the plotting room, so I always had hard chocolate. The poor Swabbies topside, they were eating melted chocolate because it was so hot that chocolate was melting.
So you had to sneak down there and get your...
But I had good hard chocolate bars.
I love that story. It's like a nice hack. Do you remember when you heard that the Japanese had agreed to surrender? Do you remember how you found out?
I'm trying to think. First of all, they dropped the atomic bomb. So we were advised that this was going to be the surrender, that they were going to surrender. And then I became an eyewitness at the surrender ceremony. I was right there when it happened. So,
how did you feel being there in that moment?
Well, having been selected to be a part of the ceremony, I felt pretty good. You know, I was just a young sailor at the time, and a lot of things like that didn't faze you much. You were just sort of accepted the situation and enjoyed the moment.
You didn't think about the fact that you had a front row seat to a pivotal moment in history?
No, not at that time, but now when I look back at it, I realize that I am a part of history. But at the time, it was just... I always seem to be fortunate to be selected for things for some reason or other. I was selected for special shore patrol duty. I was assigned to being a pallbearer for the premiere of Turkey when we were going into the Mediterranean. I just seemed to always be in the part of that where the action was.
Yeah, because that was after the end of the war, right?
Yeah.
So you spent time on before and after, but from what I understand, it was only 23 minutes long, the surrender, the whole pomp and circumstance of the surrender. What do you remember feeling? Was there anything that you were feeling at that time? What you heard? Did anything stand out?
Well, let's see. General MacArthur was there, Admiral Nimitz. I think I was in the honor guard at the time, so I was right there witnessing it all,
So you're in all those pictures?
Probably.
You don't see them very often?
Well, sometimes they come up on the news, and I could sort of point to where I was in the group,
How do you think your time on the Mighty Mo changed who you became after the war?
Well, I guess it's all part of your growing up experience. My time aboard the Missouri was, part of action wartime, and you just more or less accepted each situation you were in. So how it affected me after the war, I don't know. As it affected me at all in any way.
So then, what does it mean to you to be here for this 80th anniversary of the surrender?
Well, first of all, I'm glad to be alive to be here, so especially to be a part of this 80th anniversary. I've had so many of my shipmates that are not here, and I'm just grateful to be one of the very few that are still here from that period, you know. So it's kind of humbling in a way. But I don't know, I'm grateful to be sitting here being interviewed by you and looking out at the beautiful Pacific Ocean. And just a great feeling.
How long has it been since you looked out at the Pacific?
This is the first time I've looked at it since 1946 probably.
So you left Pearl Harbor and you have not been back since.
No. I was back in Cleveland, Ohio.
But this was important for you.
Oh yeah, great to be here. I'm great to be a part of this whole operation. I'm looking forward to going on my ship tomorrow or today. That'll be a humbling experience, especially when I go to the spot where the surrender deck is. There's a plaque in the deck, bronze plaque, and signifying the surrender of Japan on the 2nd of September 1945.
It has to be deeply meaningful to be here.
Oh,
and it has to
absolutely.
be deeply meaningful to see that so many people care about
Well,
your
I can
service.
hardly wait to get on that ship, but I'll tell you that much.
I love that you call it my ship.
It is my ship.
I love it.
Heck, I was on the pre-commissioning crew of that ship, you know.
So what did you do on the pre-commission?
Well, as you become a plank owner of the ship.
Because you're working to get it ready to
Yeah.
be ready to go to sea.
Yeah, in fact, my son always reminds me that because I'm a plank owner, that they're allowed to be married on the ship. They want to get married, you know. You get special privileges.
Special privileges.
Yeah.
So I've been thinking about this a lot as I've been preparing to meet you and the other veterans. I have no way of knowing what World War II was like.
I'm trying to remember my last moments on the Mighty Mo. All I remember is that we were being discharged and be ready to go home. Matter of fact, my division officer was trying to, he said he would like me to re-enlist and stay in the Navy, and he said if I would stay, he would make me first class right away. And I said, well, why don't you let me go home first, and I'll think about it. Well, once I went home, I forgot all about going back. But if I had listened to him, talked to him, I might have wound up staying in the Navy for 20 years or so. But I just went home, and that was it.
And what did you do after you left the Navy?
Well, I got a job, got married, raised a family. So, you know.
You're happy when you look back at the landscape of your life?
Oh yeah. I've been very blessed. I truly have been blessed. I can't thank God enough for all the wonderful things that have happened to me in my lifetime.
Well, I can't wait to see what it's like to see you see your ship again.
I'll probably have tears in my eyes.
Yeah, probably so. I did hear something about you and cigarettes. What happened with you and cigarettes in the Navy?
I remember my buddy and I had each put up $12.50 so we could buy a case of cigarettes, so we wouldn't have to stand in line all the time to get them. And I remember that I unscrewed one of the steel deck plates, which was approximately, say, 24 by 30 inches, or roughly like something like that. And I stashed all my extra cigarettes under that steel deck plate. And maybe I should go back there and see if I left any.
They might still be there?
Who knows?
Do you remember?
I remember that we, you know, I bought a whole bunch of cigarettes, so I had to store them someplace. I didn't want to leave them in my locker, so I thought, well, we unscrewed one of the steel deck plates and stuck them under there.
So would you remember where that steel deck plate is now?
It was probably a midships, but I couldn't remember actually when, but I would think that if I did, I would go back there and see if I left any.
Do you still smoke now?
No. I smoked up until about 1980. And then I just stopped cold turkey.
Cold turkey?
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's a good story.
You wound up in the service, and you were always under some order or another, and you just went with the flow, you know. Wherever you were assigned to go, you did. You did your duty. It was a matter of you're in the service, and you've always got somebody giving you orders, and you follow them.
So, is it just that you kept your focus on the task at hand, not the bigger picture?
Well, no, I didn't focus on the task at hand. You just, you know, if you were assigned a watch, you did your duty for that watch. But that was only a part of your whole experience in the service. You know, there's times where you're on watch for 4 hours. There's times for liberty. There's times where you know, being free to live your daily tasks. That's what, you know, it was. I don't know, it was. I always had a good time in the service. I never had any problems.
You look back at it positively.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah, it was a positive experience.
When's your birthday?
October 7th, 1924, 100 years ago.
You are remarkable, sir. You
Well,
are
I don't know
remarkable.
about that, but I'm
You,
glad to be there.
You are. You're 100 years old, recalling things from 80 years ago, and it is phenomenal.
Oh, yeah,
and I
I
appreciate
have
you.
good recall of memories of things from way back when.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, I can think about the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s. Yeah, all of them, you know. I've been a pretty active person all my life. I had a business, and I worked up until a year ago. Now that my kids are running the business.
Up until a year ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're phenomenal, sir. It is so great to meet you and to talk to you.
Well, nice to meet you, Stephanie. It was
Thank you.